just to make sure we're all good. All right, here we go in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Good afternoon. I'm Jim Eskin on behalf of Eskin Fundraising Training. It's a privilege to welcome you to webinar number 76. Margie and Laura isn't 76, a lucky number. I'll introduce folks in a moment. And we're really excited about our guest star who will be introduced. First, I'm going to introduce myself. I've been sponsoring webinars. We started right with COVID, and we are building our learning community. Laura, one of the advantages, if I had someone come drive 20 miles to one of my workshops, I'd buy them a beer. You know, we have 17 states have been participating, so we love that, you know, advantage of technology. And by the way, we have one of our future presenters, and I like her, Margie Hellshine, who is executive director and founder of America Connected, is also a former competitive gymnast, ran a gymnastics school and teaches yoga around the world. She's going to lead, you got 2 weeks, 4 weeks to get ready, Margie. Give us a 30-second capsule of what we're going to be talking about in healthy fundraisers are successful. You got to unmute yourself.
I'll call you in an hour. Bye.
We're going to talk about being connected, and the mind, body, spirit is how we do that. In order to be connected to the world, you need to be connected with yourself. And once we do that, once we figure out how we're connected, we can then connect with others and have the respect that we need in order to connect with the world, which makes us be able to accomplish what we need to.
Okay, Margie, thank you. And Eskin Fundraising Training launched in 2018, inspired. I think I've heard Laura at least 3 times. She likes coming to San Antonio. And again, I'm going to give her a fuller introduction, but if it's okay, I'd like to use, quote, your description of our monthly newsletter from none other than Laura Fredricks. It's been called Kick Ass. Am I okay? I'm going to use that, you know, as
perfect.
my blurb.
Love it. And it is. And it is.
In the audience today, we have a cross-section of the nonprofit leadership. We have CEOs, we got directors of development, we have board chairs, we got donors, volunteers, and we appreciate all of you. And what we like you to do, by the way, our producer is John Largent, who's CEO of Game Day Media. John, can you explain the 2 ways that people can join us? They either can type something in the chat room, but I'd rather see them. I think Laura would rather see you too, but you can come on camera and we'll give you video and audio privileges.
Absolutely. If you are so inclined to ask our esteemed guest or our host any questions, please just, there is a mechanism in your in the bottom of your screen where you can raise your hand, and I will unlock you so that you can speak and be on camera.
Right, and you come on anytime. I think I have like, I don't know, 6,000 questions ready for Laura, but this is really for you. And so we're gonna, when we get to that part, we're gonna organize it into discovery, cultivation, solicitation, and stewardship. And at that time, my wife doesn't think it's possible, but I'm going to shut up and you're going to share your questions and comments with Laura. But for the one time, I would prefer to use the chat space. If you could type in your name, your nonprofit, and your location. And I'm going to ask, do we have, I've seen a lot of people from the American Red Cross, which is a wonderful organization, sign up. Do we have any folks from American Red Cross at this time? Okay. Do you see any cities and states, John?
I see Xenia says she is with the Red Cross. I hope I'm not
where
mispronouncing your name. I don't know.
You want to come on? Can you come on camera for a moment?
Hi, folks. I'm not ready to come on camera. I found out about the seminar last.
Are you
minute,
taking a
so,
blood transfusion or something?
just not quite ready today. Maybe
Okay,
in a
no,
few
hey, I
minutes.
wanted to say, we really appreciate the fine work that you do at the American Red Cross. I know
Well,
Laura,
thank
and I'll give you a moment. I'm gonna hear, but you've worked with just about everyone. You've worked with the Red Cross too.
Yeah. Wonderful
Thank you. Yeah,
organization.
we have a few more folks from the Red Cross as well.
Oh, welcome
Also,
everybody. It's a party with American Red
Thank you.
Cross.
Excited
We
to
are
be here.
ready. We are ready.
And by the way, this is a good thing. I like to call Laura the GOAT, and as the greatest fundraising authority of all time. She started her career as a lawyer and then turned fundraiser. And I asked her, how many times you think have you spoken? And I mean, she had to use both hands. It's well over 1,000. Would you say that?
Yeah. Yes. I'm a young body in an old soul.
And she makes the point too, we're going to take a quick look at one of her books. Asking primarily in today's discussion is going to be about soliciting for your nonprofit, but also Laura's advice, and here's her book, The Ask, is not just for nonprofits, but to help you in your career, help you in your personal relationships. And Laura, let me welcome you. Just say that's the shortest introduction, but you are the GOAT. And also what I really appreciate about Laura is a big heart. Here's this little Jim Eskin in San Antonio, and you always find time to partner with us and share your wisdom. Thank you for being such a great mentor to me and so many others in the fundraising business. My first question, just take a moment about this is your latest book, right?
Mhm.
Take a
Yes,
minute,
it
tell
is.
us about it, because it's not just philanthropy.
No, well, this is kind of an evolution. I started, way back in 2000, writing about, I was approached to put in one book, how to ask for annual major plan, campaign, endowment. And I was getting people coming up to me saying, okay, that's good, but I want to start a business. And I'm like, well, it applies. So then I wrote a second book about how to ask anyone for any amount for any purpose. But I still was sounding like a nonprofit. And so I said, I'm going to put in one place. I'm going to lead with business, philanthropy, everyday living, to show anyone who needs to ask for anything that there is one way to ask. There's structure, there's steps, and it'll make your life so much easier. It'll reduce all your stress and tension thinking about, oh, I need my kids to do something, I'll do it this way. Oh, I want to ask for a raise, I'll do it this way. Oh, I'm going to ask a big donor for someone. So just to even it out, make it nice and easy. So even the book cover is as simple and as inviting as I could possibly get. And it just checks off all the boxes and dive in. And this book has 175 ways you can make an ask.
Well, I said we were comparing calculations. Laura, I had a good week. I sold 6 books this week. And Laura said, now I'm just 243,733,000 behind her. I'm going to catch you, Laura. It's going to take me a little time.
Your book is excellent, by the way.
One of this, I've been using this in every webinar. I'm going to go off script a little, but those of us who are in fundraising have seen close up that I really think the benefactor and the donor gets the most joy from the philanthropic loop that involves the donor, the solicitor, and the beneficiary. And if you take a moment to expand on that theme.
Because giving is an opportunity. It's not taking something away, just like you have here. And so, there are so many things that it's like a gift. You're actually giving them a gift. It's something that they can do, something they can feel good, something they can feel proud of. And when you approach it in that mindset, it just relieves anything that might have told you to hold back or project that the person doesn't have the money, doesn't know me well enough, I'm not the person to do it. It's just when you look at it, it's just a shared opportunity. You do it with a friend, so do it with a donor.
I love this quote. By the way, Laura was one of the speakers at the Association of Fundraising Professionals convention. It was the first one in person in 3 years. It was at the MGM Grand in Vegas. So first one, it was a very revealing question. When you're at the blackjack table, Laura, and it's 16, do you hold or you say hit me?
Hit me.
Okay, now I don't know if this is fair, but Laura's, she's a mentor and I need help. Is there anything you can reveal on today's show? And I'm gonna put out a stratagems tomorrow or Friday that you haven't told folks before.
Yes, I'm in the process of writing a new book, which sounds easy, but during COVID,
What
there's
number will
nothing-
that be for you?
That'll be number 7.
Wow.
Number 7.
Wow.
I just, I write books when I see a void, when I see something not happening. I just have to put focus on it and structure to make it happen. It's as simple as it gets. And during COVID, which we hate to talk about, but it was there, Jim,
Yeah.
for the last 2.5 years, people were calling me from all walks of life, ages, with everything, saying, how can I possibly ask someone to do it? With all the health issues going on, the food banks going on, mothers at home, with kids, and I saw them take a giant step back from some things that they really needed. And I thought, what am I going to do about this? So I just actually today just signed a book deal, and it's going to make asking so simple. And this is the reason why. For the books that I've written before and the talks I've given, I've realized that I never shared myself in the book. I'll give examples of donors, I'll give examples of people, I'll give examples of startups, I'll give examples of kids being bullied or none, but I never shared me. And so this is actually an autobiographical look at how I got here, but actually how really asking is something you had done when you were so young. I'm just going to bring it back. I'm not going to show you something new.
That is so exciting. Laura, and that sets us up perfectly for the next question. You've worked with, I don't know, hundreds, maybe thousands of nonprofits. Why do you think so many nonprofit leaders, both professional and volunteer, that are virtually fearless in everything else they have to do in their lives, are terrified of asking for a gift for their favorite cause?
I've really reflected on this the last 3 years, and I say the number one reason, and I've tested this, that people do not ask is because they are afraid they'll hear a response that they won't know how to respond to. It is not fear, it is not rejection. You've heard that word since you were 2 years old, crawling on the floor. That's not it at all. What it is no one wants that deer in the headlights look that someone said something and I don't know what to do. So especially with board members, since we are talking about nonprofits today, they are very skilled, very astute business people. I don't care if they're like older and balancing a checkbook, they know business. They won't do something they think they might be unsuccessful with, so they don't ask. And the reason they think they won't be successful is because they wouldn't know how to respond to it. So my job is to show you how to get prepared to answer anything that you might come your way.
Okay, Laura, now we've had about more than 2 years of experience. What do you think we've learned about the capabilities and the limitations of video asking?
Right, I love this graphic too. I think video asking, there are several win-wins here, okay? First of all, Jim, I'm laser focused on you because the only person I see is you and your background. I don't see what's behind you, what's on the side of you. I don't see people coming in your door. And so we really have a great opportunity to really establish that eye contact and body language in asking. That's a win-win in my book, okay? The second, it's super time efficient and people love when you've saved them time. They don't have to get in their car, they don't have to get in the train, they don't have to schedule. I mean, it's super efficient, okay?
Yeah.
And again, you have them alone to yourself. The downfall is perhaps if we can't control their background environment. I can't control the pet that comes walking across the keyboard. I can't control the doorbell that rings for construction. I can't control the garbage men that choose to go through. So other than controlling that, but I see it as a win-win. And Jim, I do a lot of capital campaigns. It has sped up the time in our feasibility studies. I mean, before we would have to standards, it'll take 6 months to reach 50, 70 people. And now we can do that so much easy. And people are appreciative that you save them time.
I love that. Hey, when you were on our show in September, you said Laura's new mantra was giving gives control because there was so much uncertainty in the world. And if anything, I think there is more uncertainty, what's happening internationally in the Ukraine. Could you expand on the giving gives control theme?
I think it's reinforced at this time. So yes, I was on your show and it's reinforced. Think about it. We just kind of came out of the pandemic, ready to kind of start traveling, having a little bit of normal life, and we just got slammed with this war in Ukraine. So mentally, we're exhausted. We're absolutely exhausted. But the one thing I saw, and we know the billions of dollars that were given through donor advised funds at a time when no one gives, March through June, we saw that in 2020. Why did they do it? They can't do anything, but if they give, there's something that they can look and follow. And especially with Ukraine, I have so many friends that want to volunteer, that are boosting other family foundations. As I said, my partner's in Italy. She's taking an intensive Italian class. Did you ever think that Ukrainian women make up the majority of her class? And because they have relatives in Italy and they need to learn the language. And this school is doing everything it can to continue their learning and get scholarships. Giving gives control.
I love it. By the way, I try to keep up with your LinkedIn pages, which you also have so much. And I'd like to say that a new Laura is the focus on one thing. Could you explain that?
Yes, in one sentence, I will say it. Where focus goes, success grows, period. That's why focus is so important. Where
And
focus goes,
that could
success
be
grows.
in managing your
Anything.
prospect portfolio, your personal life. I mean,
A hobby you took up,
yeah.
an exercise routine, anything, a meditation practice, whatever it is so hard to avoid multitasking, distracting on and on. But when you are focused, this really, really is one of the most crucial elements in asking. When you are focused, you're about 90% to yes.
I like to say we have a mantra here at Eskin Fundraising Training, and that is nonprofit strong. So Margie, what are we? You're muted, but it's okay. Laura, what are we?
Nonprofit strong?
We are, and I'd like everyone, this is the last time because now we want to see you on camera. Could you please type into the chat space, nonprofit strong? I am skipping, by the way, Laura, $1 million a minute. If you take last year's Giving USA total of 471 billion, that works out to be $1 million a minute. And how did nonprofits get that $1 million a minute? They did something outrageous. What did they do, Laura?
Asked.
Yeah, thank you. It's not really.
They did. They
So
did.
we're come to the audience part. Go ahead. We've come to the audience participation. I'm actually going to shut up. You can ask any question you want about really, I would say, strategy. You can't make it too micro. I don't think it's fair to ask Laura who are good donors in Kalamazoo, though she might know that. But we want strategy questions. And who in the audience would like to be first? And this question should be about discovery. Other people call it prospect identification. I call it discovery. Who would like to go first? Not all at once. Margie, how about you go first?
I've got David, and I'm going to unmute him.
Okay, David, welcome.
Hi, Jim. And Andrea would absolutely say
Oh,
that
hey,
you can't
David,
shut up.
were you at AFP in Las Vegas?
Yes, he was. Yes, he
Absolutely.
was.
Got
I
to
gotta
hang
tell
out with
you,
Laura.
David and I, we found each other at the 2018 conference. We went to the same elementary school. We were sitting at this table and I go, where are you from? He goes, Boston. So okay, I can play that along. What suburb? And he goes, Newton. I can keep on playing that. Where'd you go to high school? He goes, Newton South. I can play that. Where'd you go to elementary school? Now that's not a big universe, and it was at that time Spalding. So
Right.
he's doing wonderful work in New Orleans. What's your question on Discovery, David?
We grew up about 200 yards apart.
Yeah.
Laura, I was wondering if in the context of Discovery, and we were
Mhm.
talking about board members' fear of asking.
Mhm.
What is I was going to say best, but sort of the simplest way to present to a fundraising resistant board a simple phrasing, a simple ask that they can remember and use that will get them involved in the development process. So it might not, I'm not necessarily even saying, okay, how do you get them to ask for money?
Right.
But what would be the best first step on that path?
Well, David, good to see you again. We had such a good time in Vegas, and you're one of my favorites. I love seeing you. Thank you for coming on. I'm going to say something, and everyone's going to be, I don't have the time. If you really, really want help with your board, you have to meet with them one-on-one like you would a donor. You can't do this during a big, massive board meeting. You have to sit down, and in David's example, I would sit down with each board member and get into their language, get into their words. I've been learning this more and more, how choosing their words and then spinning it back to them so it resonates comfortably with them, they'll be able to say it. Because I could sit here and say, you could say, do you feel comfortable sharing this? Would you consider being on the board? And if those are too harsh or too forward for them, they're not going to say it. And I was just on a webinar this week with a group called Savvy Ladies, which is interesting. It's about helping women be financially sound, which is
By
great.
the way, I saw that name. They signed up for this webinar.
Oh, awesome. And it was interesting because I did have a participant whose language I did give, and she said, I could never say that. That sounds too harsh. And then it dawned on me, well, those are my words. So I said, tell me more. And when she did, I was able to turn and twist it so it was really her words with a couple different twists, and she could say it. So this is very important to get your board members to move to their next level of fundraising comfortability. So I would strongly suggest you sit down, talk to them, and saying, what is the one thing you would like to do with us? Is it introduce someone? Is it prospectively see a board member? Is it whatever? And how can we go about making that happen? Make it a group thing, not a you thing. And then once you hear what she or he has to say, use those exact words to fashion how they could ask.
Well, I'm going to build on, and remember I said I was going to shut up, I lied. But, all of us have had prospect identification work sessions with our board, maybe our development committee. What do you do when they say, well, we don't run in circles with those big wealthy people? And we ask them, who do you know? And they'll come back, we don't run in those circles.
I just had this with a group I'm working with in Philadelphia, and we had a very big reception with a very prominent host. And I think they got a little scared that they didn't know anyone on his caliber. Mm-hmm. So I said, look, what's important right now is to think about who would like more education about us, because you never know where it'll go. It might not be them, but it might be someone that they know. So the point is to just learn more and see where it goes. And everyone seems to relax. I've learned a lot. If we relax everyone, you're going to get more. If you sit there and say, well, of course you do, you belong to this golf course, or you belong to this private school, and it's not going to go anywhere. So just say, you know what? What's important is that they get to know us, and let's see where it goes.
Is there any other question? Is there any other question in the audience about Discovery? I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I've got a question here from Southside First in the chat room, and they are asking, how can we use peer pressure to give more time, energy, and resources?
Interesting.
I would love that person to come on, because I'm not sure what they mean here. Peer pressure, getting someone to, and I don't know, get more time, energy, and resources for your nonprofit. But if she could come on, or he could come on,
yeah, we'd love
great.
to have you come on camera.
Yeah, I'd love to work through it, but I want to understand it.
Yeah, they're able to come on now.
Okay.
They're unmuted.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes. Hello. Oh, I love your shirt. Very colorful. I love it.
Thank you. And so basically my question is, you were talking about a formula, how it's you can use the same thing for different strategies.
Right.
So basically, I think a big thing is I realize sometimes people are afraid to be the first.
Ah,
And so, how can we say, hey, do it with a friend, or, something like that, start small so that they don't
Mhm.
seem as alone. Like that's one example of peer pressure, so, but I mean, I know there's also peer pressure of keeping up with the Joneses, even with giving.
Well, one thing you can do is, I always find it helpful is if they're really hesitating that much, go with them so they can see how to do it. And you're doing it together where actually you're doing it, but it feels like they're doing it. Okay. So don't leave them out alone with their friend or someone else. You go with them and then kind of show, and then just see how easy that was. And that's great. And take it one step at a time. But I think they would like to see an example of how this really works in real time. So that's one thing I would do. And the other thing is, I think you really have to drill down. What are you really thinking about how much money the person has to have before you suggest them to us? And normally it's like $1 million a gift. But sometimes, it's just that if they start out with a $10,000 or $25,000 gift or 500, whatever it is, we just want them to get to know us. So that's a big qualifying thing. We'll stand up and say, we need more philanthropists and we didn't make our goal. And in their mind, they're thinking anyone I suggest has to be on Millionaire Row when they don't. So those are my two suggestions for you.
Hey, let's move to cultivation now. And for a lot of us, this is the fun part of fundraising. And that is where we forge a personal and emotional bond between the donor prospect and the mission of our organization. Any questions now for Laura on cultivation? Joel Batelsky from the Dallas-Fort Worth area. You got one on cultivation?
Yes, I'd like Laura to comment about humor.
Do you
Good
have a good
humor or
sense of
bad
humor,
humor?
Joel? Do you have a
in-
good sense
in
of
this
humor?
fundraising process.
Right,
That's a great
right.
question.
Well, I don't really use humor until I know the person, because you never know which way it's going to go. And in the beginning, during discovery, sliding into cultivation, by this time in cultivation, we should know a little bit about them. Some people are extremely conservative, and so you don't want to use some humor. Some people like humor. Some people's humor goes way on the other side, which I had that example this weekend, and you just have to smile and not comment. But the more they get to know you, and if you are a humorous person in good taste, I always say that the best part of our world is to have good friendships and to be yourself. So
Do you have a joke or story that you like to tell that's humorous?
not standardly, but I always let the circumstance speak for itself. Like, people thought it was, we did this event in Philadelphia, and people thought it was humorous when the last train to New York City got canceled and Laura was stranded in Philadelphia, which they thought was absolutely humorous, and I did not. So, I just I'm very topical, Joel. I just, I don't tell a standard canned joke. I just kind of go with it to see if they like it or if it's funny. But have you had an experience where the humor did not go your way?
No, I find humor. I did a big joke the other day. We were talking to a group of people, and I said, I told my wife I wanted to be cremated, and she made me an appointment for Tuesday.
Well, I think that's very funny.
Hey, Joel, that reminds me, you took me to this real fancy restaurant in Dallas, okay? He used to live in San Antonio. And it real fancy. It wasn't Morton's, but a place like that, or Ruth Chris. And he goes, Jim, I apologize that the food is awful tonight. And I respond, yeah, and the portions are small too. Okay, cultivation. Any questions on, this is where you forge a bond. And I also have some questions, but I want to go to the audience first. Anybody else out there? Anybody, how about from the American Red Cross, one of our favorite organizations? I'm going to ask a question on cultivation to Laura, because I'm kind of really want to know, okay? Can you cultivate a person too much?
Yes.
And tell, how do you know you're cultivating too much?
I think when it becomes routine of what you start doing, like, oh, I have to, the expectation is, so first of all, there was a lot of, we learned 3 years ago, old rules have died and they're not coming back. One of the old rules were the higher the gift, the more cultivation you have to do. We all know that that's
Yeah.
not true. Some people can make a mega gift on the spot. Other people for $100, you have to talk to them for 2 years. We know this, okay? So to me, cultivation should be, you've got to use your instinct. If you feel like a person needs more and wants to learn more or be exposed more to, people in the organization, then that's going to take a little bit of time. If this person is like, yep, I've got it. No, this is good. I've heard a lot about you. Yes, you've been around. You can shorten it up. And, one of my other phrases, which is not on your slide, it will be next time, is donors leave clues and we miss every one of them. Donors leave clues. We miss every single one of them. If you have a person saying, yep, I'm good, I understand, and means it, not blowing you off, what they're telling you is, I'm pretty good to go here. What do you want? And my top 3 questions that we always step over, and this happens during cultivation, so get close on this one. When you hear, what do you need? How can I help? What can I do? You are being invited to be asked. Don't skip over it. This always comes out in cultivation. They're asking you, what are your priorities? What do you want me to do? Where do you see me in your organization? What do you need? How can I help? What can I do?
Hey, Courtney, do you have a question?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, what organization are you with, Courtney? by
I'm
the
with
way?
the Red
The Red
Cross of
Cross.
Los Angeles.
Another Red Crosser. Okay. Thank you for the work that you do.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for hosting this. And Laura, I don't know if you remember me. I'm sure you meet 1,000
American
people.
Heart, of course
American
I
Heart.
do.
And I use your book. I've been talking about your book, and I just tell the team all the time. Laura always says, look for clues from donors. So I never forgot all that you taught us, and thank you. So the question would be, I'm always looking for the best examples of cultivation. So in your, experience,
Mhm.
what's something that just stood out for you that an organization did with a donor that you thought, wow, that was just incredible?
I was gardening in her backyard. I went one day and I could see this is her love. This is what she does. And I mean, remember, Courtney, you've got to share yourself to get close to people too. You can't just right?
Right.
Remember? So I got talking that my grandmother was a florist and she was born in 1901 and she was the eldest of 8 and she had to take care of the family. So she began gardening because they lived next to a cemetery so they could sell the flowers to the cemetery. After that, when my grandfather died very young, she had to take care of a lot of people. She opened up her own florist. And as smart as she was, remember back then we're dating, I know a lot of people are, telephone books were big. You used to look at stuff, not Google, telephone books, right? She named it Avenue A, so she'd be the first listing. And when I shared that with this woman, and she said, would you like to see? I said, love to see. I said, you know what? I haven't done this in years. And and so we started gardening. And we just got to know each other and laughed and I learned. And little things like that go so far, but you have to be willing to share yourself. Courtney, does that help?
I love it. Thank you, Laura. Yes, absolutely.
And Courtney, thank you for the work that the American Red Cross does. I hear my late mother, inspiring this question, Laura. What do you do not do during cultivation? What is a thou shalt not?
Thou shalt not thou shalt not be present, and thou shalt not stop listening. So reverse, you have to be present, you have to listen. The worst thing you can do during cultivation is be distracted, don't have eye contact, your body language is terrible, and look like you're walking through it, check, I'm done.
And also put these things away, right?
Yes, yes.
Let's move to solicitation. And
Laura's favorite topic. Yahoo!
All right, yeah. And I'm going to start and then go to the audience. How do you know the time is right to solicit a prospect?
Instinct. There is never one right time for everyone. It's not 3 meetings and an ask. It's not no meetings and an ask. But I'm going to tell you, I have a new rule. If you hear, what do you need? How can I help? What can I do? You ask. And the way you do it is say, Jim, since you asked me, our priority right now is blank. Can we talk
Mhm.
about it? I think we've got a great opportunity for you. Simple as that.
Nice, nice. Repeat that one more time, by the way. That is a pearl.
Right. So say, Jim, since you asked, right now our priority is fill in the blank. We have a great opportunity for you. Can we talk about it? Keep it a conversation. Keep it light. You have just been invited. Don't talk more about the program. Don't talk more about your organizational chart. Don't talk more about, you know, your new board chair. Get to it. You have been invited to be asked. Don't skip over it.
Do we have any other questions on solicitation from the audience and some of the other members of the learning community? I got another one. You might have heard this before. How do you know how much to ask for?
This is probably the hardest question
Mhm.
of all, because we can let's do the obvious. We can look at research. If they gave $50,000 here, they have the ability to do it. That doesn't say inclination, but have the ability to do it. You can do prospect research and say, well, they gave more, they can do it. I think it comes down to just thinking about your needs and creating a design for them. So even if they gave 50,000 over there, say, listen, you know, we've been thinking a lot and we have designed a gift opportunity we think will be perfect for you. Can we talk about it? Right now, we'd like you to consider a gift of, you know, 100,000 in a year, and let's talk about that. And if they can't do it, okay, think about it, and then maybe come down to 2 years. It's very difficult to know that for sure. One of the lines I use when I really don't know, and it's true a lot of times in campaigns, and I would say, Jim, I really have no idea if you can make this gift of $500,000, but I do know when you do it, 3 other people will step up behind you, and that is just like domino effect for us. And sometimes you have to be honest. Do you really know in any slice of time that person has it? I don't care what they're sitting on, where they live, what they drive, anything could happen to anyone in a flash. So
Yeah.
I always say honesty wins the day. And if you really are struggling, just say, we really have no idea.
Okay, here's another tough one, Laura. You teach us to ask for a specific amount for a specific purpose.
Correct.
So I go ahead and meet Joel and I ask him to consider a gift of $10,000 for X nonprofit. And I shut up and wait for his response. There's no response. What do you do during that silence? It seems like eternity.
You just look at them and continue to smile.
Mm.
You've got to practice it, but the minute you jump in, you know, you've really stolen their thunder. You've really stolen their voice. You've really stolen their moment. So when you think about it that way, yes, a minute can feel like a year, but you need some practice, and just smile nicely and just look at them.
Right. Any other questions from the audience, the learning community on solicitation? You can either type them in, but we would prefer to have you come on camera. You got the GOAT. You got the greatest fundraising advice and counsel on the planet. And her rates, she turned the meter off in the cab. So you have an opportunity.
I have a question here. Any ideas for discovery of new donors?
Oh, we're back to the South Side first. Okay. Again, I'm not too sure what you mean, ideas for discovery. You mean ways to find, I think you're looking at ways to find new donors. The best way to find new people is to first work with your board, have like an event or a Zoom town hall, have them invite people, try to get them educated. But when someone is brought in by someone else, that's the absolute best way to find new people.
Any other questions? Let's go back to solicitation. Any other, we also want to get to stewardship. Anything else in solicitation? Okay, let's move to stewardship. I think this is another very fun part of the fundraising cycle. And I'll go back to sort of a first question. Is it possible to thank someone and steward them too much?
Yes. But before I
And
answer that, Jim.
How might you know what's that line that you shouldn't cross?
Well, I think we have a tendency, if they've given a large gift, and that is large, however you define it, that we have to give them stuff and give them attention. I always say during the ask, this is very important, ask them during the ask, you know, when you make this transformational gift, when you make this wonderful gift, how do we best stay in communication with you? Let them decide. That should drive every stewardship plan, not your plan. Some people just call, I have had more people say, just call me from time to time, check. Now, if I didn't know that, and I started mailing them, giving them special VIP tickets, doing whatever, they're going to start to go down that path of, you're using my money for the wrong purpose. So during the ask them, how can we best stay in communication with you? And they will let you know.
It sort of dovetails into that. What do you think about getting gifts from pretty simple, like a coffee mug, to something much more extravagant?
Well, I think people are personally done with the smaller items. You know, I've seen a lot of people, especially when they have a gathering, have a small gift bag, and up comes the Yeti water bottle, and on and on. The things that I've seen done well, and I'm very proud of this. I was a board member for 11 years on Operation Homefront, one of my favorite board opportunities. They always gave something that just had a brand with them. Like if we went to an event, they had like very tasteful high-end chocolates with the logo embossed on them. And I thought that was sweet. That's nice. It's enough, right? But to keep giving stuff, you know, you go home and you figure, oh, do my kids want it? Do my, like, you know, niece and nephew want it? And you wind up re-gifting them, okay? I think, you know, after all of this, people are looking for your time and they're looking for experiences.
Got a question here from the chat room from Ezra. What is your advice with older donors, such as in their late 80s and 90s, in securing legacy or planned gifts?
It's a, thank you, Ezra. Thank you, John. It's a delicate conversation, as you know. I always found in planned gifts, it's best to lead with stories of people, perhaps their age, who have done it and are happy. So if I was going to visit a couple like in their 80s or whatever, I would just say, you know, we're here today and we're grateful if they've made other gifts, talk about it. You know, we just had this wonderful person who we've known, and she was amazed how easy it was to make a bequest for us. We found it so easy that it was one phone call to her financial advisor. Excuse me. I think you have to lead with that so they relax, okay? And then see where the conversation goes. Because everyone with planned gifts, there's always something. Either there's a decision to be made with someone else, they think it takes too long, it's too much money, where will it really go? Once I pass, how will I know the money out of my will be? Everybody's got some nuances about that planned gift. So my job is to try to unearth that in a delicate way. And I only found the best way is to lead by an example of another donor who had made a planned gift.
I try to do the impossible on this slide and kind of add up Laura's wisdom in about 25 words. But I want to ask, particularly in the last one, talk about tone. I think I ought to talk about tone.
Yeah, I found, especially when one of your questions, Jim, was what are the pros and cons of virtual asking, which we all had to do for 2 solid years, right? So I learned in that, in addition to being focused more, because you're looking at everybody in a box and they're looking at you in a box, is resonating tone. I mean, we just have a universe of you right here, and me and our attendees. And I found when it comes to asking for money, like if you have a soft dish, not low so we can't hear you, but if you put your personality into it and your sincerity into your tone, it's like a magnet that draws them in. And so I say to people, practice it, because sometimes you might come off too harsh, too scripted, too brash, or too down because your head is looking down and it looks like it's kind of like just blurt it out, but don't look at me. So I found that tone really can smooth over all the great words that you've carefully crafted to use in your ask.
We're gonna have some highlight points I'm gonna ask Laura to expand on, but first of all, this is for the audience. Are there any other questions from the audience, or they can relate to the issues we're gonna talk about, some highlights right now? And again, Laura's been there like the rest of us. Don't think you're taking something away from the donor. They probably get the most out of the philanthropic loop. And that's not, I know it sounds a little like BS, but Laura, when you and I have been doing this for onward 30 plus years, truly the donor is almost enjoys the most joy.
They do. They do.
David has a
You're not
question.
taking anything away. And if you have that attitude, you're probably going to be doomed. Hey, let's talk about listening. One of the Lauraisms I love, during a typical donor meeting, success is defined by the donor talks 75% of the time, the nonprofit leader talks 25% of the time. Could you expand? I've used that a million times.
Oh, good.
Could you expand on that?
Yes, because I think where does the ask break down? The ask breaks down when you're over asking the ask because you're talking too much. In any donor prospect engagement, discovery or asking, your job is to learn. And the only way you're going to learn is by asking good questions. And so when you ask good questions, you get that ratio of 75 to 25. You're there to learn. They can learn everything you're going to say from your website, your brochure, from your meetings, from your outreach, from your mailings. They can get it all. But what we want is to hear more about them personally, what's going on, what have they given to? How was that experience? When and if you were going to do something with us, share what would it look like? Ask good questions. Because listen, you flatter someone when you listen. You do not flatter someone when you overtalk.
Hey, I just was recruited to the Operation Homefront board. I'm making this up. And for the first time in my life, I'm going to ask for a gift face to face. What advice would you give me?
Spend some time with this, and I know this. Supporters of Operation Homefront are a very unique sector. Someone in their life was touched through military service. So the first thing I would say is know what that connection is. And when you do ask, say, for your father and grandfather who laid their lives down to help us to get to this point, would you consider furthering our mission by giving a gift of something? You really have to know who you're talking to in the mission. And that's one of the missions is to have strong, stable, secure military families, and to thank, beyond thanking, to give financial support and stability to people who continue to serve our country, whether in war or not. So that's the way I would coach you to do that.
And I'm going to flip it now. I'm an Operation Homefront, and I'm told we have someone in LA. I'm in San Antonio, so I'm going to do it via video. What advice would you have someone making their first video ask?
I would say, first of all, I'm sorry we can't do this in person, and I respect your time. The good thing is we probably saved you an hour, which is great. So there's my humor.
Yeah.
We're getting back to Joel. There's my humor. And say, listen, I much prefer doing this in person, but the needs of our military families dictate that we do this now, and I would get right into it.
Any other questions from the audience? But before that, actually, I wanted to ask Laura, the boards I've seen, too often, they're looking for perfection, and you're never going to get perfection. Even
Right.
Laura Fredricks is not going to get there.
No.
Even Jim Eskin's not going to get there. How do you move a board to start? Let's just go out and start asking. They want to stay inside and talk about strategy and strategic plans. Talk about it's time now to start asking.
The starting point before we even do that is for the people who do not want to ask to get comfortable with one small exercise. And that is, no matter who you talk to, in one sentence, share out of the 1.5 million registered charities in the United States, why did you choose this board? One sentence. Come back, tell me how it went, and that is fundraising. And when they realize they're in fundraising, they'll want something more, something more. And that's how you start to build. That's where you meet each board member at their own level of fundraising comfortability, and you move them up. If you sit there and tell that same group of people that does not want to fundraise, we need to raise 50,000, you're going to get zero. Give them an activity they will like to do. Now, I'm a board member and I can say this. What board member of anyone we have here on this fabulous webinar does not like talking about themselves? Every board member likes to talk about themselves. Give them an activity they like to do. One sentence though, because we don't want, when I was a young child growing up in the Boston area and I knew that, no, I chose to be here because.
I was watching a movie the other night and there was this great line. You know what a relationship is?
Define it.
Relationship is something you have until something better comes along. And in fundraising, we're looking for friendships. Can you talk about how you can go in with the friendship attitude, a development officer or a board member who's soliciting?
With a friendship? Well, I think you learn that during cultivation. You have common bonds, right? And listen, anyone doing the asking, the person you are asking has to know, like, and trust you. That's another rule you can put on your next slide there, Mr. Eskin. Know, like, and trust. You can't ask unless they know, like, and trust you. And you'll do that during cultivation or times together, okay? And you're gonna establish those common bonds. And once it does, it gives you certainty, it gives you confidence, it gives you comfortability that you both know each other and you can go forward.
Let me ask you, when do you know I got my first gift from Joel, okay? Ever. When do I know it's right to ask him for another and a bigger gift?
Donors leave clues, you miss every one of them. Listen carefully before you ask how he likes to be asked and in what manner. Usually they tell you, I told this one group to stop mailing me and they don't. Now we know he's been over asked or she's been over asked. Or, I gave and then they dropped me. Well, maybe we need some communication in between. It might be early, not just once a year to ask. You will sift out those clues and know how to go back. Now, listen, the other thing is if we didn't learn 2020, we were under a rock. How many times we asked for an emergency relief gift? We asked for end of fiscal year gift. We asked for virtual events in the fall. And then we asked for the end of year gift. We asked 4 times when probably we would have asked just once, all right? My other thing is let external forces govern your internal decisions. Let external forces govern your internal decisions. When we were thrust into this pandemic, what did we do? We had to raise money. So what did we do? We raised money in a different way. We literally most of us asked 4 or 5 times, okay? So that guides what you do. And if a person says, listen, I'm good for a gift every March, simple, easy. Don't go back to them 3 times a year. Okay?
I like it. Hey, we got a few minutes left. Is there anything from the audience? And while you're thinking, I'm going to ask you, Laura, what do you do? I have Joel now gave $500,000, okay? And we start talking about naming rights. And he says, that's not for me, but you kind of deep down suspect it is for him. Any suggestions on donors who they need to be talked into naming rights?
Well, the other thing is, I always lead with that like anonymous donor story. Say, listen, Joel, we've had some people kind of in your situation who at first didn't want their name, and I totally understand that. But you may change your mind, you may think it over. So take your time. This is not something that has to be decided and left today, and we can always revisit it.
Right.
All right, I've got a question here, Jim. First of all, David has had his hand up, so why don't we go to David first?
Okay, David, you're on. Since you're from Newton, we're going to give you 2 questions.
Oh, boy. Thank you.
You're lucky.
Laura, you would in the context of stewardship,
Mm-hmm.
I've worked with a whole bunch of relatively smaller not-for-profits where they want to structure the stewardship process to, okay, if someone gives us, up to $100, we send them the IRS level letter and we'll send them a thank you note. If someone gives $100 to $1,000, we'll do this over $1,000. How do you balance the need to have that structure so that stuff gets done with the need to listen to what the donor would like?
I like the structure, David, and it works. This is it's a checks and balances, so no one goes unrecognized. That's fine. But my thing is, if you have done a personal ask and they've told you, I don't want anything, then take their name out of that plan, right? That's why God created the database. You can put, do not send mailings, okay? Or do not send a special event. We have the capability of doing that so that when we do need to pull a report and addresses, he or she is not in there. I like the levels. It's a good check. I mean, everyone has to be recognized. But if someone says, I'm just good, David, if you call me and, you know, thank me and maybe your board chair and I'm done, then take them out of like the 1,000 letters that they're going to get. So it takes time, but you know, we're not dealing with thousands of people that want individually things, but if they do, and to be listened, that's when your gifts are just going to escalate. They're just going to escalate because they were heard.
Hey, we got a couple of minutes left. Do we have anyone else in the audience who'd like to?
I've got a question here from the chat room.
You go ahead, John.
Yeah, I've got a question from the chat room from Margie. If you speak with a prospective donor and send a thank you letter the next day, how long should you wait to follow up?
It all depends on how the conversation went. What did they say? What did they like? Is there some follow-up you need to do? Did they say, I'm gone until September? Again, just whatever they said, lead with. And if they, let's say they said absolutely nothing, which I can't believe they would, they said nothing. Say, you know what, I'm going to be back in your neighborhood come August. Are you vacationing or can we get together? Just keep it light, okay? I think sometimes we think that there's like right steps and right, it's all what you hear. And that's why I say you talk 25, they talk 75, and they'll let you know. It'll set out your path. It'll be right in front of you.
You know, I like to think of fundraisers and nonprofit leaders as social entrepreneurs, and you're going to be recorded. You're going to have your best practices and everything, but at some time you got to call an audible and you have to improvise and be entrepreneurial, because there is no set rule that, you know, David's going to be 10,000, Joel's going to be 15,000. It's going to change for every donor you have there. Laura, once again, time has just flown by. If there's time for one more question, again, I want to thank you not only for how you've inspired nonprofits, but for practitioners like David and the American Red Cross and myself. You've always been such a generous mentor in sharing what you know. And you also, another thing, and every all of this, Shay is the GOAT, but you're also just a real person. Thank you for being Laura Fredricks. And I want to quote Maya Angelou, who said, people won't remember what you said. They won't remember what you did. They'll never forget how you made them feel. And our job is to make our donor prospects feel like they're the most important people in the world to us. I say, guess what happens? The more you ask, the more you get. Laura reminds us that you don't get what you don't ask for. Laura, again, I can't think of anyone who is a more radiant, shining influence in our profession. Thank you for the way you help us all. Any closing words?
I do, and I do have an ask for all our attendees.
Oh, great.
I do. Go to my website. I just put this on today. It's expertontheask.com, one word, expertontheask.com. I can put in the check. And please sign up, because I'm going to be starting some tips for you. And then I want you to be the first to get the new book that comes out next year. But I have some questions you can help me shape the book as I'm writing it. So
Wow,
I'm going to put it in the chat now so that you can do it. But it really is important to me that I hear from you, and so that you can help me shape it.
Could you repeat it?
Yep. It's expertontheask.com. I just put it into the chat.
And let me ask, by the way, two things. Within about the next 10 minutes, we're going to post a short written summary of some of the high points Laura made. And then John Largent, our producer, thank you, is going to put the recording through a spin drive. And then we're going to send that to everybody who registered. And also we're going to post that on LinkedIn and Facebook. So you can catch up on websites and that type of information. But we're at Zinfandel time. That's what we drink in this house. Laura, thank you again
Thank you,
so
Jim.
much.
Thank you. A big hug.
Really, and thank you to our learning community, not just for joining us, but what you do to touch, improve, and save more lives. Thank you to John Largent. And we'll see you 2 weeks from now. We have Sally Bryant on talking about his firm, the Bryant Group, has been in the advancement, recruitment, and coaching business for 31 years. And she's going to talk about efficient advancement teams. Laura, thank you. I
Thank
can't
you,
wait to
too.
see you in person in Vegas
Me
or New
too.
York. Best yet in Boston. How's that? Having some
Sounds good.
clam chowder, not red clam chowder, white clam chowder.
Real
Oh,
clam chowder.
Only if David comes too. It's a 2 for 1
David's
for
going to be
me.
there. It's going to be a
It's a
legal
deal.
seafood.
Good.
It's a
good,
deal.
Good. Good.
Thank
good.
you,
Love you
Laura.
both.
Thank you so much.
Big hugs, Jim. Thank you.
Bye. Hugs,
Bye-bye.
David,
Andrea.
thank you,
Bye,
Margie.
thank you.
Bye. Thank
Thank
you.
you.